In today's video, we're talking about how to hand sew a pretty ribbon headpiece, ideal for weddings or just for fun. What you will need is a selection of widths and colours of double-sided ribbon. That means double-faced, satin both sides. The colours are your choice. You can use oddments from your craft box. You'll also need a piece of acrylic felt, only a small bit, that tones in with the colours you've chosen for your ribbon headdress. You'll also need a plastic headband, approximately 1.5 centimetres wide, and some blue ribbon or, again, toning colour to cover your headband with. You'll also need glue, thread, scissors, and a lighter. Now, first of all, I'm going to cover the headband. And what I do is dab some glue on the end, and then I cut about 1.5 meters of this ribbon. It depends on the width of the ribbon as to how much you'll need, but you'll need at least 1.5 meters. And you attach it to the glued end, and you just keep wrapping it around the headband. So just keep wrapping till you get to the other end, and then glue down to secure. So that's our headband done. So there's our thread and needle and our lighter. Now I'm going to take this blue ribbon first. It's quite wide, but I like the colour and I thought blues would be nice. So I'm going to cut off a section, probably about 0.5 metre. I'm going to trim the ends so that they're not all raggedy. And actually I'm just going to shape these a little bit. Not very much, just to give a bit of a shape. And then what I will do is, once I've done that, I'm going to use the lighter to seal the ribbon, stop it fraying. You literally run it across very quickly, across the edge, to seal it. And if you feel it with your fingers after you've sealed it, you'll see that it feels quite stiff and it's fully sealed. Then I'm taking my single thread and I'm doing a running stitch all the way along one end of the ribbon. A fairly narrow running stitch, not too wide, otherwise it won't pull up into a pleasing shape. So run your stitch all the way down one edge of the ribbon. Once you've done that, pull the thread up, and there you have a sort of a rosette shape. And now you can decide whether you want to leave it as is or whether you want to alter it a little bit. I decided that as this ribbon was a bit thick, what I would do is go up and down and form more petal shapes. So I'm just stitching the ribbon ends together so that they don't disappear. And then what I'm going to do is do some running threads up and down every couple of inches and make some more defined petal shapes. Because as I say, I've chosen rather a wide ribbon here, but it was what was in my stash at the time. You might find that your ribbon's only a couple of inches wide and it looks fine just as it is. But every couple of inches I'm going to go up and down and form some petal shapes. If I'd known I was going to do this, I'd have done it before I actually drew the thread up at the end, but there we are. It's all trial and error. So once you've done all of your petal shapes, and remember a flower looks better with 5 or 3 as opposed to 4. In fact, that works for most things. Plants in the garden, things on a hat, they always look better in 3s or 5s and not 2s or 4s. So, I mean, you can use any ribbon, you can use lace as well. It just depends what you tend to have in your box and what colours you like. But I thought blue would be nice. So I'm going to stitch. Try to speed this up for you, but it's still a bit slow. trying to make it look as neat as possible. And the last petal here. They only have to be done quite roughly. I'm not doing, it's not got to look like a flower, it's just got to look attractive once it's on the headband. So I go through to the back and seal it, and there we have our little rosette flower. So a couple of stitches just to secure. And there we are. Now, what colour next? Ah, yes, some pale blue. Now, this isn't quite so wide, so I'm not going to probably do any petals. Again, I've probably got about 2/3 of a metre, something like that. And I'm probably going to cut this again into 2, depending on how it pulls up. Different ribbons behave differently. As I say, on this, I've used double-sided or double-faced. You can use single-sided. It just tends to make the rosettes and flowers a bit more floppy. So anyway, I've pulled that up. I've folded over the edge at the back. Just stitched it down to keep it neat and tidy. Few securing stitches. And that one's done. So now I've got 2. And I'm going to do another one. I've cut this one a bit shorter. And what I'm going to do is a running stitch down the middle this time. So down the middle of the ribbon, all the way to the end. Don't forget each time to use the lighter on the ends of the ribbon so it doesn't fray. So that's about as much as I want. So before I get any further, I'm just going to cut that a bit shorter. Again, seal it. And then pull it up. And stitch it down into place. And so I've got another little rosette. Try and keep your colours toning, but, or you don't have to, I suppose. You could go mad and have all colours of the rainbow. Now there's a little bit of ivory for a contrast. And again, I'm stitching down the middle of the ribbon here. Now what I'm doing with this wide green ribbon is I've cut a rough leaf shape and again, edged it and checked it's not fraying and the edges feel secure. And then take my thread again and do a running stitch in the bottom edge so that, and pull it right up and stitch it together. So I'm going to carry on making a couple of leaves like that one. I've got some ombre ribbon here. Now this was wired at the edges, but I didn't want the wire, so I've pulled that out. And I'm just going to do the same thing with the ombre ribbon that I did with the plain green ribbon and cut some leaf shapes. So again, if you take the wire out, you can do this much better. You can't really do it with the wire still in situ. Now I've cut a piece of blue felt in a sort of oddly petal shape, but it's got to fit from the middle of the headband to about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. And I've cut that to shape, just slightly wider than the headband, and I'm going to stitch it now to the ribbon that we covered the headband with. Now the reason for doing this is it gives you a better base for stitching all your decoration on. It makes it sturdier and you've got more space to work with, and also it gives it a nice look from the underside as well. So I'm going to stitch all the way down the middle of the headband and the felt, stitching it securely in place. With a double thread here or extra strong thread, whichever you've got. once you've stitched all the way to the end, it looks like this. And now we're going to arrange our petals and flowers and things on the top. Now it's up to you how you arrange them. I suggest you pin them on first, have a look, move them about and gauge what looks best. So I'm going to mess about with it for a little while and come back to you in a moment. Right, so I've stitched them all in place, all securely stitched to the felt. And I've also added a sparkly button in the middle there. And you can see the underside looks nice and neat and tidy. If you want to, you can add feathers or anything you want, really. The world's your oyster with something like this. You can use any types of ribbon or lace. And it just makes a very attractive headband. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. And as always, please subscribe. There'll be more coming up, some simple and some quite complicated. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Hope you're keeping safe.